Chapter 2. Birth of the Nazi Party. On the dark autumn Sunday of November 10th, 1918, Adolf Hitler experienced what, out of the depths of his hatred and frustration, he called the greatest villainy of the century. The expression appeared in the first German edition of Mein Kampf, but was changed to revolution in all subsequent editions. A pastor had come bearing unbelievable news for the wounded soldiers in the military hospital at Pasewalk, a small Pomeranian town northeast of Berlin, where Hitler was recovering from temporary blindness suffered in a British gas attack a month before near Ypres. That Sunday morning, the pastor informed them, the Kaiser had abdicated and fled to Holland. The day before, a republic had been proclaimed in Berlin. On the morrow, November 11th, an armistice would be signed at Compiègne, in France. The war had been lost. Germany was at the mercy of the victorious Allies. The pastor began to sob. "I could stand it no longer," Hitler says in recounting the scene. "Everything went black again before my eyes. I tottered and groped my way back to the ward, threw myself on my bunk, and dug my burning head into my blanket and pillow. So it had all been in vain. In vain all the sacrifices and privations. In vain the hours in which, with mortal fear clutching at our hearts, we nevertheless did our duty. In vain the death of 2 millions who died. Had they died for this? Did all this happen only so that a gang of wretched criminals could lay hands on the fatherland?" For the first time since he had stood at his mother's grave, he says, he broke down and wept. "I could not help it." Like millions of his fellow countrymen then and forever after, he could not accept the blunt and shattering fact that Germany had been defeated on the battlefield and had lost the war. Like millions of other Germans, too, Hitler had been a brave and courageous soldier. Later he would be accused by some political opponents of having been a coward in combat, but it must be said in fairness that there is no shred of evidence in his record for such a charge. As a dispatch runner in the 1st Company of the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment, he arrived at the front toward the end of October 1914 after scarcely 3 months of training, and his unit was decimated in 4 days of hard fighting at the First Battle of Ypres, where the British halted the German drive to the Channel. According to a letter Hitler wrote his Munich landlord, a tailor named Popp, his regiment was reduced in 4 days of combat from 3,500 to 600 men. Only 30 officers survived, and 4 companies had to be dissolved. During the war he was wounded twice, the first time on October 7, 1916, in the Battle of the Somme, when he was hit in the leg. After hospitalization in Germany, he returned to the List Regiment, it was named after its original commander, in March 1917, and, now promoted to corporal, fought in the Battle of Arras and the Third Battle of Ypres during that summer. His regiment was in the thick of the fighting during the last all-out German offensive in the spring and summer of 1918. On the night of October 13th, he was caught in a heavy British gas attack on a hill south of Wervik during the last Battle of Ypres. "I stumbled back with burning eyes," he relates, "taking with me my last report of the war. A few hours later my eyes had turned into glowing coals. It had grown dark around me." He was twice decorated for bravery. In December 1914 he was awarded the Iron Cross, 2nd class, and in August 1918 he received the Iron Cross, 1st class, which was rarely given to a common soldier in the old Imperial Army. One comrade in his unit testified that he won the coveted decoration for having captured 15 Englishmen single-handed. Another said it was Frenchmen. The official history of the List Regiment contains no word of any such exploit. It is silent about the individual feats of many members who received decorations. Whatever the reason, there is no doubt that Corporal Hitler earned the Iron Cross, 1st class. He wore it proudly to the end of his life. And yet, as soldiers go, he was a peculiar fellow, as more than one of his comrades remarked. No letters or presents from home came to him, as they did to the others. He never asked for leave. He had not even a combat soldier's interest in women. He never grumbled, as did the bravest of men, about the filth, the lice, the mud, the stench of the front line. He was the impassioned warrior, deadly serious at all times about the war's aims and Germany's manifest destiny. "We all cursed him and found him intolerable," one of the men in his company later recalled. "There was this white crow among us that didn't go along with us when we damned the war to hell." Another man described him as sitting in the corner of our mess, holding his head between his hands in deep contemplation. Suddenly he would leap up and, running about excitedly, say that in spite of our big guns, victory would be denied us, for the invisible foes of the German people were a greater danger than the biggest cannon of the enemy. Whereupon he would launch into a vitriolic attack on these invisible foes, the Jews and the Marxists. Had he not learned in Vienna that they were the source of all evil? And indeed, had he not seen this for himself in the German homeland while convalescing from his leg wound in the middle of the war? After his discharge from the hospital at Belitz, near Berlin, he had visited the capital and then gone on to Munich. Everywhere he found scoundrels cursing the war and wishing for its quick end. Slackers abounded, and who were they but Jews? The offices, he found, were filled with Jews. Nearly every clerk was a Jew, and nearly every Jew was a clerk. In the year 1916-17, nearly the whole production was under control of Jewish finance. The Jew robbed the whole nation and pressed it beneath his domination. I saw with horror a catastrophe approaching. Hitler could not bear what he saw, and was glad, he says, to return to the front. He could bear even less the disaster which befell his beloved fatherland in November 1918. To him, as to almost all Germans, it was monstrous and undeserved. The German army had not been defeated in the field. It had been stabbed in the back by the traitors at home. Thus emerged for Hitler, as for so many Germans, a fanatical belief in the legend of the stab in the back, which, more than anything else, was to undermine the Weimar Republic and pave the way for Hitler's ultimate triumph. The legend was fraudulent. General Ludendorff, the actual leader of the High Command, had insisted on September 28, 1918, on an armistice at once, and his nominal superior, Field Marshal von Hindenburg, had supported him. At a meeting of the Crown Council in Berlin on October 2nd, presided over by Kaiser Wilhelm II, Hindenburg had reiterated the High Command's demand for an immediate truce. The army, he said, cannot wait 48 hours. In a letter written on the same day, Hindenburg flatly stated that the military situation made it imperative to stop the fighting. No mention was made of any stab in the back. Only later did Germany's great war hero subscribe to the myth. In a hearing before the Committee of Inquiry of the National Assembly on November 18, 1919, a year after the war's end, Hindenburg declared, "As an English general has very truly said, the German army was stabbed in the back." The attribution of the myth to an English general was hardly factual. Wheeler Bennett, in Wooden Titan, Hindenburg, has explained that, ironically, 2 British generals did have something to do, inadvertently, with the perpetration of the false legend. The first was Major General Sir Frederick Morris, whose book The Last 4 Months, published in 1919, was grossly misrepresented by reviewers in the German press as proving that the German army had been betrayed by the socialists on the home front and not been defeated in the field. The general denied this interpretation in the German press, but to no avail. Ludendorff made use of the reviews to convince Hindenburg. The other officer, says Wheeler Bennett, was Major General Malcolm, head of the British military mission in Berlin. Ludendorff was dining with the general one evening, and with his usual turgid eloquence was expatiating on how the High Command had always suffered lack of support from the civilian government, and how the revolution had betrayed the army. In an effort to crystallize the meaning of Ludendorff's verbosity into a single sentence, General Malcolm asked him, "Do you mean, General, that you were stabbed in the back?" Ludendorff's eyes lit up, and he leapt upon the phrase like a dog on a bone. "Stabbed in the back?" he repeated. "Yes, that's it exactly. We were stabbed in the back."